Greetings, fellow captains. This is Darkfireslide, and welcome to my own personal self-coverage of the second Steel Division League tournament. I am in America Code A, which Code A is for players who are not as good as the actual pros, we'll call them. Although Steel Division being as small a game as it is, pro is sort of a relative term. But nevertheless, this is a really interesting experience for me, and I'm just going to kind of do a post commentary on this game. This isn't going to be as in depth as the third Asia Pacific coverage that I'm doing, but I do want to show it anyway. So I'm playing against Mrwooster, who is playing as the 3rd Canadian Infantry. I am the 352nd Infantry, the Pegasus Division, and let's look at the opening break here. So I've got infantry heading over to this flank in case I can maybe make a push or just kind of to hold the line because of the way the command radiuses work. I've got an artillery piece heading here, got a couple of units heading to the city, an AT gun heading for this bush. I want to really cover this expanse, so to speak, opening with a Pack 40 with that Opal Blitz. And then I've got infantry heading here and a couple of units heading in this direction as well. Now, Mrwooster is doing something super interesting at the start of this game. He opens with a scout aircraft, and this isn't something that most people in tourneys do, just because they're so vulnerable. On the other hand, what you can kind of get away with is if your opponent doesn't immediately build AA, you can continue to get line of sight on pretty much everyone, or they have to invest in a fighter if they actually want to kill this unit. Which is a big investment at the start of the game if you don't already have one. Now, fighters are useful anyway. Fighters are something everyone should get. But there is a tournament player who does use this style. I believe his name is Gonzo. And he's well known for doing this with a scout aircraft at the start of the game. So that's kind of what we're seeing here. Now, he hasn't foregone the rest of his recon, of course. He is looking to see what's going on and where. But as we can see, I don't know this when I'm playing, but there are huge kind of gaps in his line here. And that might have been something, if I had scouted better, if I'd been more aggressive on this front early on here, I might have been able to exploit a little bit better. I think because I was playing 352nd, who is not very good in cities, although after this video, that may be up for debate. Nah, I'm just kidding. 352nd isn't very good in cities. But I really concentrated on the city because I knew I didn't want to give it up for free because it's such a hard thing to take back. But as we can see here, Mrwooster opening with some stormtroopers, basically just some 6-man grenade infantry with double submachine guns. Very, very good at taking out infantry at close ranges, at 100 meters. They do come with TNT and smoke grenades, both of which very good for taking out enemy units inside buildings. But things are relatively calm here at the start of the game. We'll go ahead and kick the speed up to regular here. Now Mrwooster does put down this Vickers over here. Now HMG teams are an interesting subject in Steel Division, simply because they are very low on actual manpower, and the amount of firepower they bring isn't always proportionate to what you could have brought instead in the form of a standard infantry squad. So I try to make a move up here with these Osttruppen, and his Vickers actually shuts it down. So as I'm talking shit about the Vickers, it starts to tear me apart. But what I do here over on this flank is kind of interesting, I think. I hold this Phase A Pack 40. It's the only one that 352nd gets. And I hold fire on it until it's able to shoot that ram at a range where it can actually penetrate it. Because only having 13 AP makes it very, very difficult for this pack to frontally penetrate it. But at this point, it's too late. The trap is sprung, and I'm able to just lay waste to pretty much all of his units here. Now, that being said, he does have a 54% map advantage at the moment. I have to pause the recording real quick. Alright, sorry about that. My dog has been having some issues lately. He's been a little bit whiny, and I didn't want that to catch in the mic because I know it's a little bit obnoxious and unprofessional, and you don't want to keep it as professional as possible. But if I put him completely up, he will howl, and he'll be very sad. And so, please pray for my dog. Hope he gets better. because he's in a little bit of pain right now. But all that being said, so what we can see here is that, and this is something that I was telling myself the entire match, is you need to be more aggressive, because I played a couple of practice matches. I'm mostly an AI player, and people who watch my channel before, who watch my EU4 videos, mostly know this. I mostly play against AI in video games, just because it's less intense, it's less stressful, it's more fun and interesting in some ways. Maybe not as interesting, but anyway. So I go for this. I keep telling myself throughout the match, I need to be more aggressive. I need to be more proactive. So I see that he buries this Ram 2 over here. And so I start shooting it with this light mortar, this light 81mm mortar. And as a result, I've called in this 120mm mortar. Sorry about that lapse in commentary. If my dog starts whining, I'm just going to mute the mic and hope that he stops. But anyway, so I see that he has this ram over here. This ram is a problem because I can't really do anything about it. So I start shooting it with 2 of my mortars, and this is so that we stress the ram, right? Possibly make him retreat into a line of fire of possibly my pack, which is already running out of high explosive shells. Now, an interesting thing that I've learned playing in the tournament is that if you're using these AT guns, you can sort of get away with using them as light support guns if you can keep them supplied with HE shells. But his ram moves forward for some reason after getting hit by artillery, and that's enough for it to get stressed. And finally it's panicking, it's falling back. My pack gets a hit, the shooter is wounded, and finally we get the kill on that ram. And that was just such a huge relief at this moment because I was worried that that was going to be able to overtake me if it was played right. But as we can see, more units coming in from Mrwooster, coming in on this right flank where I really haven't put much over here except for Osttruppen. Now I try making an aggressive play here in the center with my Panzerschrecks on this Wasp. One of the squads gets wiped out entirely, so I think better of that. I move my infantry back and just kind of start to hope, right? But then I start shooting it with my 120mm mortar, and this mortar here in the center position did so much work for me this game. It really was such a powerful and instrumental unit. As you can see, this Vickers actually did cause me a lot of trouble in this game, especially because these ones have vet on them, and vet on a machine gun usually means that things are going to be going well for them, but I get a Ju-87 strike with no AA to really counter it, and I managed to get a wipe on one of these squads, which is just really, really awesome. As we can see, huge infantry push now coming in from Mrwooster here in the center. I'm just trying to keep it suppressed with this mortar, moving my other mortar into position to hopefully counter it. And one interesting thing that I chose about this is I noticed a distinct lack of anti-tank from Mrwooster, pretty much on all accounts. So I started spamming some very interesting units. I'm just going to pause to show you, because if you haven't played 352nd or looked at them much, you may not have seen these before. It's because they're a very silly, very adorable unit. This is the Panzer 35R. I always call it the Hotchkiss, but apparently it's not a Hotchkiss. But it looks like a Hotchkiss, so who knows? It's the Renault 35 model light tank. And the thing is, these only cost 40 points, which is the equivalent of two of my Osttruppen infantry squads. So not bad for a tank that can withstand some anti-tank fire. It's got 5 frontal armor, so light anti-tank does have a little bit of problem getting through the front of this sometimes. Or, if you're lucky, it will bounce a few shots here and there. But more importantly, it has a lot of high explosive shells. It has as much high explosive as it has AP, and it has a lot of those shells. And it has a machine gun with a lot of ammunition as well. So these are just really, really great for dealing with things like half-track rushes, for massed infantry that don't have AT, or even ones that do have AT if you keep them at a distance. These are just a really weirdly good unit. If you can get a little bit of command on them. they're even better. And then what's even funnier to me is there's a tank destroyer variant of that same tank that has 9 armor penetration. And these are only 55 points, so only 15 points more, and you can suddenly, at certain ranges, kill even medium tanks if you're able to ambush them with these. Now these aren't, now I'm overselling these a little bit. These aren't the greatest units ever, but for what you pay, they're pretty reasonably priced. So this is a pretty important play here. I send up these Osttruppen and these two 35Rs to deal with this HMG. Mrwooster calls in this AT gun here to deal with these, and what ends up happening is super interesting, I think, for the match. But Mrwooster getting that 52% back in the game here. He hides this Recce squad here very well. I don't know that I ever noticed this thing intentionally. But here I am going again with these Ju-87s. Now I got this idea from a player by the name of Protoss who his version of this deck does have this card of 2 Phase A Ju-87 Stuka dive bombers, which I've really found to be very useful for getting a couple of surprised airstrikes off on infantry and light vehicles. And that to me is just extremely awesome for a unit that only costs 100 points, an aircraft. And that's really kind of the thing about 352 in my experience. It's just that everything in their deck is actually pretty darn cheap, and their income isn't bad either. So what I'm able to do here is just get a lot of front coverage, much more than Mrwooster is able to. And even though things are starting to look ugly here in the town for me, these 2 mortars really just coming through for me in the clutch here. Just mad respect to these mortars. Now, one thing I do a little bit differently is most people bring in 2 of these 120mm mortars. What I find is that paying 220 in Phase A for 2 of these is a little too pricey. I like to keep it down and get one of these 70-point, one card of 3 of these 70.81mm mortars, because if you really need a lot of artillery, or artillery over a wider front, you can start using them. And now this mortar is doing what I said it was going to do earlier, make things interesting. I noticed this AT gun up here, so what I do is I use my mortar to start smoking this area, because I know that he doesn't have any anti-tank over here. He has no way to deal with these Panzer 35Rs if I got up in his face with them. But this AT gun is preventing passage, so I bring out the mortar and I start using it. Now we do have this Spitfire Mark 9 here, but I was smart enough to start bringing a little bit of anti-air. He does manage to suppress this AT gun, but I don't know what he was really going for, considering that he doesn't have any way to push even if he does kill the AT gun. So maybe just a kind of a long-term decision on his part. Not trying to criticize it, and I don't want to have this video up here as to, like, you know, inflate my own ego or anything, because I'm not the greatest player of this game at all. So when I criticize, I do it in good faith here. But anyway, this Panzer 35R just moving right in. He pins this Vickers squad. He moves up, accidentally spots the Recce. I didn't even know that this was here, and I just drove right up to it on accident. Start shooting at this Lynx, and I see the Recce spot on my screen, and so I just start attacking it. And eventually it pins and he surrenders, and it's all very good stuff. In the town, things are a little bit even. These mortars have evened the playing field, although this 120mm mortar is completely out of smoke. That being said, I am starting to shoot more smoke in this general direction, but I'm pretty sure this Panzer 35 gets knocked out by this 6-pounder AT gun. Now, because these Panzer 35Rs are so cheap, I've built, as you can see, there's 4 over here on this flank. I think this, maybe this is the one that gets knocked out. I mean, both of these die at some point. They're cheap 40-point tanks. But what I'm able to do with these tanks in the meantime is actually take a good bit of ground. But Mrwooster does call in a Wolverine. And that's a little bit of a problem. Now, I start pushing in over here on this west side with these Osttruppen, and I move this Panzerjäger up close, which is maybe not what you want to do with a Panzerjäger 35R, but it is what it is. I've got 2 more of these Panzer 35Rs over here on this flank. Again, light tanks can be incredibly useful in this game if you know how to use them. And in this case, you know, 2 of these is the cost of 1 Stuart. And I think that 2 of these together more or less perform the way a Stuart might. 1 Stuart. Now, I think do I finally get a supply truck on this mortar? I don't get a supply truck yet because I feel like... Yeah, so my plan now is to kind of solidify this left flank here, and I'm playing the long game. I'm not being particularly aggressive. I'm just trying to consolidate what gains I have instead of getting a little bit too greedy with what I have, because again, 352 is not the most, it's one of the least aggressive decks in the entire game. It's really good at holding ground, but it's not so good at taking it. And you know, so what you have to do is learn how to use your artillery, learn how to use your AT guns, and how to utilize your commander. Now, I didn't realize this during the game, but apparently he bombards this Panzerjäger a lot with his 2-inch Bren mortar carrier. I believe that's yeah, it's the 2-inch mortar. So it's doing alright. He's got an AT gun. He's got a 6-pounder moving up here. But I pull in a Stug, a Stug 3. Now these are very expensive units, these Stug 3s, but I think I more than get my value out of it by the end of this game here with this Stug. But I'm holding pretty well, honestly. I did not expect to do this well, to be completely honest with you. Now, here what I do is I have 2 Osttroopen squads, but I have one that has less health. So what I do is I send the one forward that doesn't have as much health to spot the enemy. Little morbid there, but now for a minute here I almost get his Wolverine with my Pack 38, which is pretty huge. But a couple of misses and no command on this Pack 38 means I'm just not going to be able to get the kill before this Spitfire completely pins it down. Now I do call in a Martyr 2 with Vet, because I think that this would be an okay way to maybe kill this Wolverine. And we'll see how that pans out in a little bit here. But this AT gun shows its face, starts shooting at my my 2 Panzer 35Rs. The Panzerjäger gets knocked out. We have a Spalling crit. I get wounded, and then I call in my 2 GAU-87s again, and just start airstriking the crap out of this 6-pounder. It doesn't do the greatest amount of damage, but it does do enough. And now one major difference between the Allied MGs and the Axis MGs, the MG42, the HMG42 or SMG42 has a lot more range on it, which means that you can get away with stuff like this where your infantry are just kind of up here dying, while the MG is comfortably sitting in the back, being able to do whatever it wants, more or less. Now, I forget how, but somehow I do manage to take out this 6-pounder. But we'll see in a second here. I do have these Osttroopen moving up again, but I think they immediately pin these rifles and then go in for the kill, if I'm not mistaken. Because the interesting thing about this is if you manage to pin down an infantry squad and they've got even bolt-action rifles, you can actually move the unit forward, and these will keep shooting their rifles, and will continue to pin the unit. Now this is something I did not see. He calls in 5 flamethrower squads. Now I don't know how much these cost, but that is a huge investment. He really wants to take this city back because I'm actually starting to get the game back here at 53%, and we're about 20 minutes into the game, and neither player has really managed to secure a lead, and that's really all I was going for with the play that I had in this game, was just trying to hold on just long enough that I can kind of solidify myself. But as you can see here, this is horrifying. This is the stuff of nightmares right here. Look at all of these assault pioneers with their flamethrowers. My Osttroopen don't stand a chance, but thankfully, a tip I learned just today actually is that I have these Grenadier Führers covering these Osttroopen. And in a city environment, it's very important that you have these, because infantry are very, very likely to surrender a lot inside of cities. Now, I have no idea how I come back from this, to be honest. I know I end up taking the city again, but look at this. Look at all of these assault pioneers. This is just the stuff of nightmares. Like, I'm not going to be able to sleep for weeks. I don't know about you guys. That is more flamethrower inside of a town than I think I ever wanted to see. But all I've got holding the line now is this single Osttroopen squad. And this single Pioneer squad that's coming in after them. Now, over here on the right flank, we've completely missed this. But my stuff has been completely torn apart. I lost that AT gun to that fighter. These Osttroopen are surrendering. These Fusiliers are pinned down. These are pinned down. I do bring up a Nebelwerfer, but all these infantry here are too close, so I just have to start retreating it in hopes that I can start shooting. But then he advances his units. There's really not much that I can do here. Now my counterplay to this is I know that he's going to break through here. So all I feel like I can do here is just set up another defensive line. So I get this Flak 88 right here on the ground, and what a beautiful piece of machinery. I mean, honestly, it has wheels and everything, and somehow these 4 guys push it. I don't know how they do it. The most muscular German men that ever existed, I guess. But here we can see over here on the west flank there is another Wolverine coming in from Mrwooster. Definitely going to be a threat, but I know that he doesn't have any AT in this city. And I know that his Sherman's up here, and I do spot this Wolverine because my infantry are close enough. But I know he doesn't have any AT of any kind in this city, so I bring in the Stug. And I don't think I've ever had a tank perform this well in a town before. But this is just beautiful right here. Pins that unit down, pins that unit down. Those units are getting shot. These Pioneers and these Osttroopen are really just doing a great amount of work alongside the mortars for support. And this is working out perfectly. This is what I wanted. I turned this over here into a choke point, and really just started I pushed where I had an advantage, and I moved. I fell back and I created a new line when the old one fell apart. Now over here on this side again, contributing to that defensive line idea, I've got an MG42 team and 2 Grenadier squads with Panzerfausts for AT purposes deploying here. And I haven't mentioned it much. This Grenadier Führer has done a lot of fancy footwork this match. I believe he's used one of his smoke grenades, but he will end up using all 3 of those, I think, by the end of this replay, which is just great to me. Now, this MG42 does get spotted by this Recce that I never see. Personally, I would have moved it back up here or something like that so I could spot these infantry better. That's just me, but he is able to spot this SMG-42, and it is nice for him to be able to probably be able to see this PaK-40 and this Grenadier Führer, or at least the PaK-40 since it's on the move. So his Sherman, he knows that it's over here. He's moving his Sherman over here anyway, though, and this is a big engagement moment. I forget how this turns out, but my response to his new armored push, because I see this Sherman, I see this Wolverine, and I see his other Sherman, and I'm like, this AT gun isn't going to cut it. So I call in a Martyr 2, and I believe with my next tick, I call in a elite PaK-40 crew to kind of refill the line, because my push over here is starting to fall apart. Things are looking really, really ugly up there for those infantry, although these Osttroopen are holding pretty well on their own over here. And it's been a pretty close game so far. I'm on the edge of my seat playing this. I mean, I had no idea. All I wanted to do was just try to hold back all these allied units, especially because 352's B phase income is not the greatest. Now I try to be cheeky here, and I have my 2 Ju-87s going for a dive bomb on this open top Wolverine. We get no hits, but it does panic. However, one of my Ju-87s gets shot down. I buy and call in this Focke-Wulf 190 Elite, and it's able to shoot down the enemy Spitfire, whose corpse is now disintegrated. I don't know if that's really... Oh, nope, nope. Can we... Yep, there it is. There's what's left of a Spitfire anyway. Now, with this Stug, I am able to push back. Now, I don't know... I admit that my knowledge of the 3rd Canadian Infantry is not the greatest. I was a little worried about this matchup when he picked them because I don't know this deck very well. And it's something I'm going to be trying out soon because I want to know what units they have in case somebody brings them. Because what I found in these tournaments is that Canadian Infantry gets chosen a lot because good divisions get banned. And Canadian Infantry is one of those ones that nobody's ever going to ban, which means it's kind of not the best, but it is at least a passable division. This Wolverine here, of course, is causing me all kinds of problems. He's shooting my Grenadiers, he's pinning them down. I go for this cheeky play over here with my Panzer 35R. I think to myself, well, the way the AP system works, maybe, just maybe, if I get close enough to this Wolverine, I'll be able to kill it. And that would just be that would just tickle me to kill a 130-point Wolverine with a 40-point Panzer 35R, but I digress. I've lost the map advantage. But now we see coming in from Mrwooster, we've got these sniper scouts, we've got 2 AT squads coming in for this city to try and kill this Stug 3, presumably. Now that being said, he doesn't really have much left here in the city, but his Kangaroo does get knocked out. I think his Panzer IV got knocked out by one of these units, but as you can see, this is just a disgusting, like, any tank that comes near this area is just doomed. Now I don't know how this what this recce does in this moment, since apparently it was spotting me pretty much all game, and that is really funny in hindsight, knowing that it was there the whole time. Those little two-man squads, they're tricky. You would not have expected them to get that far. I know I didn't. I believe he parks these snipers in this this house here. Snipers are a nice unit, really good at pinning. Now, one of my infantry unit gets knocked out here, my Osttruppen, and I do see that there's an anti-tank squad coming up. That was one of the last things the Osttruppen did. So what I do is I preemptively start mortaring this position, anticipating the Piet to get close enough to start shooting at my Stug. And I think I was right here. And I do actually get the kill on that Piet. So that was an excellent mortar play by me. And I know, inflating my own ego. But I'm actually, that was actually awesome. I'm undoubtedly triggering, probably, for Mrwooster, and I feel bad about that, but that's just the way this game works, I guess. I say, as if I haven't played 150 hours of this already. And just keeping up the mortar barrage, suppressing. Now, what another player might have done is tried to counter-battery this mortar, because it was giving so much grief, especially in the city. But now we've got our Martyr 2 versus this Wolverine over here. My other Martyr on the other flank definitely died, and that's going to knock out that Martyr as well. Wolverine versus Martyr. Wolverine is a better unit, even if it doesn't have the vet, just because its frontal armor is so much better. It can actually survive a hit. I believe it has the stabilizer as well that Shermans get, which means that their aim time when they turn a corner is very quick, but that's not going to save it from this Veteran 3 Pack 40, who is able, I believe, to kill both of these tanks with his aim time, his accuracy, and his faster reload speed. Actually, I think this Sherman does get away. Nope, that Sherman gets killed. So I managed to kill all 3 of his tanks here with those 3 anti-tank units. And pushing that without RDing the area first really was kind of a mistake there. But I still don't have control of the map. Mrwooster is still in control here in terms of points. But one of the things I love about this game is look at how this front line looks. This is just it's so organic. And it's so fascinating every game to look at how some of these games turn out. Where one player has given up a little bit of ground to secure a position, for example. But what happened over here is I smoked this area here, went after this Wolverine, sent these 2 Grenadier squads after, and there's just this firing squad on the other side of this bocage. So I said, screw that. That's not going to work. And I just continued to hold the line here with this Flak 88 and this Nebelwerfer. Now again, this Stug doing a lot of work for me. I was really surprised. I thought for sure this thing was going to get knocked out, like, immediately. These Assault Pioneers causing my Grenadiers some grief. I do manage to micro them out of the way in time. Or maybe I don't. But I do manage to pin them down, at least. And I don't know why he moves his Piet over here. But apparently that was the worst mistake he could ever make. Because then my Stug moves in, gets the surrender on the Assault Pioneers, or the Stormtroopers, and then my Stug goes in, gets the surrender on the Piet, securing the town entirely. Now, it is Phase C. I have managed to call in 352's signature unit, the Jagdpanther. Now, this unit, the interesting thing about big cats in Axis in this game is they aren't the game changers you would expect them to be. They are, however, terrifying. And as we'll see here, I've spent a lot of time practicing microing these, just against like AI matches. So I'm very familiar with how to use tank destroyers in this game. But he is going to back off that Sherman very wisely, because there's no way that Sherman's going to penetrate that Jagdpanther at that range. Now I opt for the card of 2 1 vet rather than 1 2 vet, because when you can have 2 of these on the field, they're just scary. And I mean, in Phase C, you really can use that extra pushing power to get a lot done. Now he moves his Sherman out here mistakenly, probably forgetting about this Flak 88, or maybe just thinking I'd still had it over here where these towns would be blocking the sight lines. I don't know if the Flak actually gets the kill here, and one thing I might have changed about this game is sending a Grenadier Führer to give this Flak some veterancy. Much needed, I would say. But I call on my second Jagdpanther, going to move in and just try to break through here, over here on the eastern flank. But things are slowly starting to turn back towards me. This Jagdpanther giving me the much-needed push I need, and the units in the city having finally prevailed. The mighty Ersatztruppen, armed with nothing but bolt-action rifles, moving their way through the fields. Look at them. They look like farmers. Get off of my lawn! Well, that, but more German. Anyway, I've managed to get 56% of the map. This Sherman 3 is coming down the road. This Sherman has its weapons jammed. It feels like I'm doing the little piggies, like that your parents or grandparents used to do on your toes. I don't know if anyone's had to go through that traumatic experience, but now one thing I was very timid about this town pretty much the entire game when I didn't need to be. I thought that because of the way the command looked, or the front line looked, that there was a unit in here, but it turns out this rifle squad was just here in this bocage the entire time. This is a smart play by Mrwooster, bringing these rifles over here to engage this Grenadier. He does have another hidden recce, and again, I don't think this recce goes down the entire game. He just keeps it there, which is good. These scout snipers doing away with my Ersatztruppen like they're garbage, because they're garbage, but they're cheap. I do manage to kill the Wolverine with my Jagdpanther, which with the extra vet from the Grenadier Führer is just awesome. Use this Nebelwerfer as I start to move my units in, just in case there was anything inside of these bushes. Now there definitely isn't anything inside of those bushes that's not running away. And fast on the draw here, I see this Mosquito, call in 2 Me-109s, and we're just going to kill that real quickly. And he's down. And it's at this point, I kill his Sherman up here with my Jagdpanther. It panicked or something. He calls in a Firefly. His Sherman starts falling back. I panic it with my Me-109. I think I get the kill here with my Stug, or just panic it enough that he makes it run away. This Jagdpanther is just pushing, and it's right about this moment when Mrwooster decides that enough is enough, and he surrenders in 4 seconds. Do I get the Sherman? No, I don't. Okay, so that's game. So, not perfect play from either side, obviously. And, I mean, 352 is a deck that's hard to do well with, which is why I'm really happy with myself for managing to win as them. Not to, like, brag, obviously, but we'll see. The units that did a lot for me, the Phase A Pack 40 in 352 I think is essential, as we can see here. A Ram and 2 Shermans, as well as a rifle squad, a Lynx, and a command carrier. Just awesome efficiency on that Pack 40. Very difficult unit to deal with if you don't know what you're doing. Mortar, 120mm mortar getting 5 kills. Good stuff. I don't think that my other mortar got any kills, but you don't get the small mortars for kills. You get them for smoke. Although it did manage to get an Assault Pioneer and a Piat squad, so good for it. Now, there's controversy about this unit because it doesn't have very good range. Mortar half-tracks have the same mortar. My logic is that if it's good on a mortar half-track, why isn't it good on foot minus the mobility? Because at 70 points, you've got a unit that can be pretty game-changing. And I like that you get 3 of them in a card. Just lots and lots of artillery for cost there. My Focke-Wulf shooting down 2 Spitfires. Jagdpanther only getting 3 kills, and my other Jagdpanther getting a Wolverine. So not really being cost-efficient, but definitely adding the fear factor to secure that win. But anyway, thank you for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed watching this, and I've really been enjoying playing this game, and I'm going to try to upload the next one as soon as possible, possibly right after. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.